Morning Talk on SAFM.
8 minutes past 9, you're listening to SAFM 104 to 107 in conversation with Utatosol Rachilo, who's an author, a playwright, director, speech and drama teacher, as well as Dr. Ruben Richards, who's CEO of the Center for African Managerial Leadership and author of the very interesting book called Bullets or Ballots, the Ultimate Solution to Crime and Unemployment in South Africa. And Dr. Richards joins us in our studios in Cape Town, and Utatosol is here with me in the studio. Thank you very much to both of you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Good morning from Cape Town. Thank you.
Fantastic. Let me start actually by reading one of your poems, Dr. Sol. It's called Lament, June 16th, 1976, and it reads, "It was a regular day, casting warmth on all humans. The sun rose from the east, and later in its glowing amber it would set in the west. But as it were, history had marked the day as the turning point in the lives of these humans. It was to a duel of young guns without guns, pitted against the weight of the incumbent, the tanks and rifles of oppression. Shouts, screams and blasts echoed through the dusty Soweto streets, acrid fumes of tear gas merged with gunpowder, choking the throats of wide-eyed children as they braved bullets and baton blows, their fresh blood reddening the streets, their young bodies littering the unpaved curbs over which the heavy hippos cast their evil shadows." Where were you on that day?
I was right there where things were happening. My late parents ran a bookshop in Soweto. When we were kicked out of Spa Town in 1955, my late father felt there was a need for the blacks to read. Hence, he had to open the first bookshop in Soweto, Crossroads, 1956. And it has been my duty up to this very day to see that my prime concern is youth. Because I was a social welfare worker then.
Yeah.
Graduated from John H. Hofmeyr School of Social Work with the likes of Nomzamo Winnie Madikizela Mandela, and the first man who opened the Black Bank, Dr. Samuel Swenyane. Of course, those are my seniors, and the late Dr. Kuzoya, Helen Kuzoya. So anything to do with youth, it occupied a priority in my heart. Because when I quit social work, I had to devote very exclusively to the needs of the children. Hence, the organization I started was called Children of Soweto Action Center, which in short is called COSAC.
And what does COSAC do?
COSAC has to do with children, the needs of children, which I mooted in 1977. What actually happened is, after 1976, I realized that the system was really hell-bent on killing the children and ferrying them by choppers, dropping them into Avalon, the cemetery. Then a journalist for the Sunday Times by the name of Enoch Duma was covering up the story. And a friend of mine said to me, "Hey, Wena, the special branch is collecting your friend tonight. Try and see to it that you make him aware of the situation so that he can disappear into thin air. When they get to his place, they wouldn't find him there." And strange enough, that was forthcoming from a man who was in the system. Then I realized that much as these guys are hell-bent on the atrocities on the kids, it's their children. And they are powerless, much as they've got to carry out their duties.
Yeah.
Then I went over to Dobsonville. I left a message with Enoch Duma's wife that, hey, the situation is very critical. See to it that he disappears into thin air tonight, because these guys mean business. Okay, be it as it may, when the Kwela-Kwelas are caught there, 7 of them, they cordoned the whole area. And Enoch Duma couldn't be traced, and he had already disappeared into thin air, left the country. very surreptitiously. But coming back to the issue of the kids, 1977 I felt something should be done. Then we got together and approached the civic leaders in the likes of Professor S.K. Mponghlele, he's late. Mr. Eric Mafuna was with J. Walter Thompson, Gibson Kent, household names in the doyen of Soweto playwrights then. And Sam Mangwani, we got together at the OCC. I told them, listen, I'm a social welfare worker by profession, and this is serious. We can't just be sitting around seeing
and watching them.
Listen, we must do something. So they wanted to know, what do you suggest we do? At least let's take it from the man who's at the helm of it all. Well, I've done a bit of homework. I felt seeing that the children are not taught the three disciplines, music, art and drama, which is not formally taught to them. We can implement the three disciplines somehow. So how somehow? Because it ends up with the students having to go to a classroom. Get exactly that. What I've done is I've done my homework already. My calling you is for us to see get on to a constructive engagement.
Yeah.
Constructive engagement.
And I want to pick up on that in a moment. Let's just bring Dr. Richards into this conversation before he thinks I've forgotten about him. And welcome again to you, Dr. Reuben Richards. You delivered a talk at Pollsmoor Prison on June 16th, and I'm going to read a little bit of your speech here, because I found this very interesting, because it speaks to some of what Dr. Sol has been saying. And reading here, post-apartheid South Africa, nothing was physically destroyed. We have everything, gold, diamonds, etc. I put it to you that what was in fact destroyed in South Africa was our minds, our thinking. This is what was destroyed. We unfortunately believe the same rubbish our oppressors believed. We believe the lie which says that your skin color will save you. I have news for you. Your color is no advantage. So what do you think is at the heart of our problem today?
Nsiki, exactly what you read in my speech. I have to, I suppose, admit that is my speech. Eh? Where did you get it?
I found it. I am an investigator.
Yes, indeed. I think the realization that our minds have been utterly destroyed by the ideology of apartheid and the seeming dysfunction within our democratic era, that realization is slowly growing. So, we can lament the problems and say, and be very paralyzed and demoralized. And we're going to say, so what is the solution? I mean, where do we go?
Yeah.
And I spend 300 pages in my book to say that the place we need to go is a new mind, an energized mind around how to turn the economy around. And I call that mind an industrial consciousness or an industrial mind. And very simply, it is the mind that asks and is curious about how things are made, how they are repaired, and how they are maintained. It's as simple as that. If you're not curious about the chair that you're sitting on and how it's made, you're never ever going to become someone that may actually make 1 million of these chairs and become a multi-billionaire in the process. And that is essentially the energy that I'm trying to unlock through my book and certainly through our Center for Managerial Leadership.
Let's talk about how you develop that. Part of what Dr. Sol does is obviously to take these kids off the street, get them into music, into art and into drama. You go into any township right now at 17 minutes past 9, I can guarantee you're going to find young people loitering on the street corners. Who's going to develop that industrious mind on someone who is sitting in a street corner?
Well, I suppose it's up to all of us as loyal and patriotic South Africans. But if you want to point the arrow more in a more focused manner, you've got to look at those responsible for the education system in our country. And we got to give whatever kind of support we can give not uncritical though, and as an educationist myself, I treasure robust feedback.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that the current educators in the country appreciate that. You may be up for treason or some other kind of charge of disloyalty. But let me say what I shared at a governance conference not too long ago. I commented to this austere group of professors that the education in white hands and under apartheid, and now in black hands under democratic rule, is producing the same result. Of course, you say that, you get everybody's attention.
Yeah.
And we've got to just say that our education system is producing masses of dysfunctional and illiterate school leavers. That's the reality. So what do we do about it? We can moan and bitch and say all sorts of nasty things. Or we could mobilize those who are competent enough to manage the education system to do something about it. And again, I'll just become unpopular, I suppose.
You generally sometimes, when one speaks the truth that others don't want to hear, they become unpopular. And I see Tatusol agreeing with you, particularly on the kinds of young people that we're producing today. Tatusol, what would you like to say about that?
Well, just to add on to what the professor is saying here, I get rather concerned of people of standing who will always voice negative opinions about the educational system in the country. But they are part and parcel of this democracy. Why can't they take a plunge and approach the very authorities in the educational system or realm and give them ideas rather than going on to tabloid and discrediting the very educational system? Because we know it's a legacy we have inherited from a very negative perspective, that is the apartheid system. And there should have been some way in which we could improve upon it. And the only way to do it is to get these people, rather than standing on the fence, pointing fingers. Now, at one stage, I had an argument with some educationists from Switzerland. I said to them, I think our problem is one. We know where the problem is. We are circumventing rather than going direct to solve it. Whereby I think if the people at the head of government would embark on a fact-finding mission whereby a team of delegates would be sent out of this country to go to the other countries and find out how do they handle the youth situation. I won't say problem, because they don't have a problem there. And then when they come back, they would constructively embark on a program which would be very fruitful, and there'll be a way forward. Because right now, we are actually in doldrums educationally.
But that's what they did with outcomes, and came back with outcomes-based education, which many are now saying is a part of the big problem. They went on fact-finding missions to look at what sort of education system to implement in South Africa, came back with OBE, and we sit with children who are bad in numeracy and literacy.
But then, at least, from that point of view, then there must be some solution that can be reached at, whereby the very people whom we are having as educationists who are in limbo can come forward and have an input towards the whole thing. Because it's a point whereby the very people we expect to make progress in the educational system, it would appear they've run out of ideas, and hence people are pointing fingers at them.
And what would you say to that, Dr. Richards? Firstly, are our authorities running out of ideas? Are they even willing to listen to outsiders?
I suspect the authorities, as the title of my book says, the authorities will listen once the bullets start flying. Hopefully the ballots will fly before then.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the issue has to do with what I call performance morality. You see, we have a crisis when what is wrong or mediocre becomes the norm. And as you quoted from my speech, when we start trading competence for color. That's the cancer of apartheid. It is the cancer of our new democracy. we do not celebrate competence, it would appear. Let me give you a fine example. For my sins, I was the guy that put the Scorpions together in South Africa, and the recruits were young, black university graduates. They were not old, retired policemen and women. These were young university graduates, starry-eyed, and still believing they could make a positive contribution to our country. And when people ask me, so, what did we lose when the Scorpions were closed down? I say, we lost the ability to role model for our youngsters what is possible to achieve.
And it's those role models. Do we have them, Dr. Saul? Who are our role models today?
That's a $1 million question, because so many from the cross-section of our society, it's hard to pinpoint the areas that from which we can get role models. It's very difficult. I at this point in time cannot put my mind actively on a positive way of thinking. How do we get about it?
Maybe I can come in if I may. I believe there are enough positive and energized people in South Africa to turn our country around. I was privileged to facilitate a group of religious leaders this past week around anti-corruption matters, and the Archbishop made the point that is worth repeating in the context of corruption. He made the comment. He says, corruption, while it may seem to be a pervasive problem, it is a minority career. There are more of us who are positive and patriotic in South Africa than those who are wanting to rape, steal and plunder, whether they be state resources or private sector resources. Now, how do we mobilize people around a positive energy and say, you know what, this is our country, we will take it back and we will turn it into the best country ever on this planet. We've got it all.
Yeah, as you said, everything's still relatively intact. It's just the mindset. All right, we're going to take some calls on 0891 104 207. SMSs to 34701. You're listening to SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. I'm in conversation with Saul Ratchilo, who is an author, playwright, director, speech and drama teacher, and Dr. Ruben Richards, CEO of the Center for African Managerial Leadership and author of the book Bullets or Ballots, the ultimate solution to crime and unemployment in South Africa. Let's take a call from Peter Wiley in Grahamstown. Hi, Peter.
Good morning, Siki. Thanks very much for taking my call. I want to put this question mainly to Dr. Richards. He basically took the words out of my mouth. I wasn't able to get a slot due to time constraints on the 15th when Kolani Gwana interviewed, I think there were 3 young guests, and the one was a female who'd gone through Model C school and had an obvious edge over the other guests and other people in South Africa. Now, we have a situation where the education, I saw in the Sunday Times, I couldn't believe what I was reading, that the one black female said that she'd rather have been educated under the apartheid system than under the present-day chaotic education system. Now, I want to ask Dr. Richards and your future callers, if in this highly competitive world that we've got today, is it not time that we started looking at the young people today, starting a movement or starting a revolt against this poor teaching, in that they should take the matter into their own hands and start recording the teachers' abilities and have this put into a record at the schools so that the teachers know that they're being watched, because personally I've lost faith in the system. We see that the situation is degenerated, particularly here in the Eastern Cape, and I think that the young people today should take the matter in their own hands. And there are 2 other points that I'd like to suggest that young people look at. because it's affecting the future of this country very badly, and it's actually our future when young people are affected with poor education and the other two issues which I want to mention. It affects our future very much.
Yeah.
And the second issue is teenage pregnancy. I want the young people to try and look at the effects on a female when she falls pregnant at school. What effect that has not only on her, but on the country, on her family, and everything else. And it's basically statutory rape. And unfortunately, the teachers in many cases are poor role models, because in the East Cape particularly, they are guilty of this, having sex with young girls.
And just give me the third point very
point
quickly.
is choosing good leaders, because I think one should really harp on this choice of leaders, which also affects the country very much, because the voting power of young people is enormous, and certain people are going to manipulate this. So those three issues I'd like to ask Dr. Richards, particularly on the education thing. How does he feel about young people keeping a register of the teachers' attendance and their actual competence, and get rid of those who haven't in the past done it, because they're sabotaging our future.
Thanks
very
Peter.
much for accepting this.
All right, thanks, Peter. I'll go to Dion in a moment, and then we're going to hear what my guests have to say about that. But interesting for the youth to take matters into their own hands, because that's actually what they did in 1976. They said, we're not going to take this anymore. We're going to go to the streets, and this is how we are going to deal with the situation. So, Dion, do stay on the line for me. I've got to go to headlines in a moment. Here are some of your SMSs sent through to 34701. Someone says, why is it that people who so readily cite the Holocaust to rationalize Israeli atrocities want Africans to forget the colonial legacy when explaining our present issues? Liz in Durban says, the past has gone. Let us build the future with education and skills development. Mr. T says, oh, you're wrong. My color is an advantage. It's important to note. And someone says, Siki, it starts there. Educate people about the beautiful, blessed black people. What news, guys, please, okay? And Aaron in Sea Point says, the social thinker Ivan Illich suggests that people have a right to meaningful unemployment. And Anthony says, for a new approach, go to scribe.com/brain curriculum. It's 28 minutes to 10 in conversation with Dr. Reuben Richards and Dr. Saul Ratchilo this morning, talking about young people today and some of the solutions, talking solutions as well, where we need to go, what direction we need to take. Also, not forgetting what happened in the past, because I think we can learn so much from that. So before we respond to Peter, let's just take a call from Dion. You're a professor of physics. Dion, morning.
Hi, good morning. Yes. Ma'am, I've been listening to the whole discussion. Number one, let's talk from a university point of view. What I have experienced over the years now, and by the way, I'm now 52 years old. I'm supposed to be in the prime of my academic career. The university per se, and schools as well, have now been changed into what I would call businesses. We are being run like a business, and we are supposed to run like a business. But we are not allowed to determine the price of our product. Neither are we allowed to determine the starting material of the product that we would like to put out, the so-called business. I find this very wrong, number one. Number two, I find it very wrong that everybody in South Africa with an education must have a degree. Why a degree? I have so many parents phoning me at the moment and asking me, Professor, what would you advise our children to study?
Yeah.
I say, why you ask me this question? Tell me, what kind of business is your child going to run of his or her own, and I will tell you which direction they should study. It's not a case of what am I supposed to study, number two. That is my point number two. Number three, the whole issue surrounding pass rates, throughputs, high numbers, blah, blah, blah. I personally feel that we sacrificed quality for quantity, and I am telling you right now, I'm in the prime of my life, but I think I'm on my way out, because I cannot work like this. This is not part of my upbringing. It's not the way that I see life. I cannot carry on like this, ma'am. I will listen on the radio.
Thanks, Dion. Thanks for your call this morning. And here's a tweet. Sizwe Lengwati says, our challenge is that government assumes we all need jobs, but some of us are entrepreneurs, hence we don't get funding easily. So that's interesting. I think let's start with the points that Peter was making, and I'll start with you, Dr. Saul, and I'll come to you, Dr. Richards.
Sure.
And particularly the point about taking matters into their own hands. I made the point before headlines that that's exactly what the youth of 1976 did.
Well, the youth of today, as I have intimated in my second book that will be launched next month, the youth of today have to take example of what was initiated by the first group, the 1976 students. But now we find that at some stage the youth of today have since lost a direction, because if they were to listen to the authorities of the present government, they would focus very well on the future. But they seem to be entertaining ideas where they feel on their own they can make a way forward or forge a way forward. But that's not the pointed issue here, because the children of 1976 defied not only the system, but they defied their parents because they felt their parents had cowed, and by so doing they took the matter into their own hands, having to take arms against a sea of troubles, which was the system. But I am appealing to the children of today that they should not act in a way that is going to be very disastrous. They must follow their seniors as to how to cuddle the whole thing, milk this cow. For instance, the government has put before the children an organization called National Youth Development Agency. But I am rather disturbed as to how the funds are being used by the youth of today, because the government is showing a concerted effort of meeting the youth today halfway, so that it's like the Socratic method which teachers apply. You teach the child for the 50 cent, and the rest of the 50 cent the child should use the discretion on his or her own. But now, really today we've got it's an uphill as far as our youth is concerned. They pay very little attention to what they are told. I wish someone could give us guidance on that front.
Dr. Richards?
And Sigi, Peter, your caller.
Yes.
Let's start a movement, a revolt against poor teaching. Let's have the students have a register of attendance, etc., etc. You know, I always worry when we ask the inmates to rule the asylum. You know, I think as parents we need to take responsibility. Kids go to school to be educated, not to manage the school. So, in that sense, I'm quite a traditionalist. However, when the system breaks down, you know, you live with the consequences. If I may use an image from industry, if you're running a bottling plant and at the end of the production line, the bottles come out and there's a defect in the bottle, do you blame the bottle, or do you look at the system that produced the bottle? And so what we are trying to do sometimes is to, one, blame the bottle, and two, not look at who's managing the actual system. It ties into with what Dion, our professor of physics, had to say, and I'm very distressed by his level of demotivation.
Yeah.
I can understand it, and I would hope that we don't lose him. But it is true that the system itself, I mean, Dion sits at the tail end of the system, at the university end of the system, and by that stage of the process, he's had absolutely no input into the starting material of the product. Well, hopefully, the quality control systems along the production line would have sorted out a lot of the blemishes in the product. You know, when you've got a university arguing about entrance qualifications and trying to build bridges that had to be fixed when the kids were in primary school. You're sitting with a situation where the problem has simply been pushed along for some other brave soul to take care of.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite radical in this regard. I say the most important person in our education system is the primary school teacher. So what I advocate in my book is that we double the wages or the salaries of a primary school teacher. And we give all the support at that foundational level. Because if you don't sort out your cracks in your foundation, you're only going to reap a whirlwind when you get to our professor of physics at the end of the line. So there's a systems analysis that needs to take place. Whether the students should be managing the system or not is an open question, and I think it becomes an academic question, really, in the sense that they probably will.
And, you know, Dion makes the point about this obsession with quantity over quality. We see the celebrations at the beginning of the year when we see the matric pass rate having increased, but very little in-depth analysis of what that pass rate actually means.
Tsiki, my response to that is, I take it from my own life. I'm a tradesman. I didn't pass matric with an exemption for university. I went to work as a labourer and then studied and became a fitter and turner by trade. So yes, I'm a professor today, but I started off on the factory floor, and my life was geared to remain in that particular space. So I didn't feel, and I must say this to all parents who are listening in, when I was doing my tradesmanship, if you want to call it that, the apprenticeship and all of that goes with that, I didn't feel any less of a human being than the person who went to university. So what's happened in our society is that we seem to have identified a university degree as the ultimate solution to our problems. And that is the crisis in our country. We have kids queuing up at the wrong institution for the wrong skills. You know, university is there for your thought leadership and, if you will, your ivory tower academics. There should be thousands and thousands of kids queuing up at our technical colleges to say, I need some practical skills that I can make a positive contribution to the economy. Because the people who grow an economy are not the medical doctors and the lawyers. It's the tradespeople. It's the manufacturing people. It's those vocational skills that we are looking for in the economy. But we don't glorify those.
Yeah.
So we send the wrong message out into our society, and people all want to become professors of physics, I would imagine. I can't even spell the word physics. But, you know, we are aiming our arrows in the wrong direction. That's my view.
And it looks like Tatisol agrees with you on that point. But then, Tatisol, maybe you can help me with this one, because we've talked about it so many times with this program. How do we change that mindset that one goes to Technikon, you're a lesser being?
It's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult in the sense that children are not geared from a very early age as far as education is concerned. They go to school, and little do they know at least what do I intend becoming when I'm an adult. And there are career guidance centers which offer this type of assistance, but how many follow that to the letter? It's the question. And it's only when I'm mentioning what I've encountered, you'll find that most students, they get up to matric, they haven't decided what he or she wants to become. And that becomes a problem, because now you've got to establish your, so to say, your destiny. Where do I go from here? And that's the primary issue that we've got to try and solve with regard to the educational system and the black child, what he or intends pursuing in life.
All right, let's hear from Alfie. You wanted to say something?
No, I'll
okay, will you wait a bit? All right. Alfie in Ramsburg, morning.
Morning, Sik, and hi to your guests. Just a fascinating discussion. I want to throw my 2 cents worth. I'm electrician. I'm a tradesman professor, and I've grown up to become a manager and a director, and in a line of management. So, but then the message I'm throwing is that the current culture in our country is that people want to get to the top. They don't want to grow to the top. That is number one. And now when you look at South Africa, we are battling with the playing field. The playing field is structurally flawed. We have so much bias and investment into politics compared to what one of the speakers is purporting in terms of becoming industrialized, becoming doers. All right? And that has made young people to lose focus. I was in Canada not long ago. I think it was a year ago, and I marveled at the young and the old on the streets at the universities. When you walk, you see people running, jogging, riding bicycles, going to the gym. You see people on their toes as if they are gunning for something. There's an aim. There is some common goal. I was in Asia. I shared with you many times, Siki. I saw young people entering into colleges, technical colleges, families starting, engineering companies within families. But then when you come to South Africa, you get into a situation where someone defined it as a mental state of young people. When I shared this information on Facebook, young people replied to me, Siki, and said their focus is money, is sex, and girls. Yeah. And I asked the young person that, but what do you mean? He said, Bra Alfie, that is the truth. That is what we focused on. That is what we use the social networks for. That is what we use technology for. We don't use technology to develop new economies, to think anew, to think how best can we become. So now what I'm saying is that we can have this discussion, but the playing field suggests that I was in education, Prof, and I'm out of education. I'm doing something else. But the fact that even at the universities, the change has happened. Universities are political playing fields. The excellent people are not celebrated. People lobby for jobs. People get into jobs using the name of the minister. It is no longer conducive for excellence.
All right, I've got to move on. Alfie. Philip Mhlanga, morning.
Oh, yes, hey, I've got flu. As long as the issue that Alf is talking about is a very important issue. When people of our country decide to put their faith on a political party, you get this. Take, for example, we have got a proportional representation here in South Africa, where in Parliament today you will have people like Omam Keys, Lowempepo, Nkatu Zumehamba Makala. And people of quality are left out because when a party gets hijacked by corrupt people, it will mislead even the country and the whole society. And that's why then our emphasis has always been change to a constituency-based system whereby you are going to get good men and women to correct this. Because at the moment, I can tell you, our townships still remain as labor reserves, like under apartheid. Nothing is being done for rezoning of business areas for our youth to be mentored there in those townships. And that's why you've got so much of higher unemployment in our country, while President Zuma is taking billions of rands to his own young boys like Tutuzane. And what is that?
Okay, thanks, Philip. Mike and Newlands, morning.
Good morning, Siggy. Just quickly, I'm almost reluctant to bring it up, but I just think it has to be dealt with. Unless such time comes when the government recognizes that our education system is in crisis, we're not really going to get anywhere. And one panelist suggested that people should stop starting and get involved. Well, the great educational starts there. Professor Janssen, the gentleman who has just written the book there, I am absolutely convinced that if Bladen Zamandi or Angie Maseka phoned them up and said, guys, we need your help, we're in trouble, they would be there, boots and all, and I'm sure there'd be a queue of educators that would be dying to help the government. But you can't go into somebody's house unless you're invited. And sorry, Siggy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Oh, okay. And, but nobody's inviting us in. And, you know, I also want to just touch on the point the gentleman said something about let's go overseas and study. We've done all that. We came back with OBE. It was an absolute disaster. I was involved in it. You know, the government has failed. The government needs to relook at this whole thing. And in fact, I would suggest needs to step back, get out of the game of politicizing students, and allow educators to actually run it and have no politics at all whatsoever. In fact, I would go so far as to say, take Bladen Zamadi out, take Nancy Moseka out, put into education and let them run the schooling.
All right. Thanks to Mike Amrit in Cape Town.
Good morning, Siggy.
Morning.
Good morning to your guest. Now, I'm concerned about the small children, right? The parents who got small children from the age of 5 years old, right? Now, how to keep these children away from all the social evils in our country, right? Now, in 1976, it was a different era from this era that we are living in now, right? Now, how can the young mothers of young children from the age of 5 keep them away, right? It's like gambling and drug addiction, alcoholism, teenage pregnancies, and all the other evil sins, right? If you speak to the children, everything that falls under, you know, peer pressure and all the other evil things.
Yeah.
But the parents, when they are speaking to the children from the age of 5, then they must keep on speaking to the children until they reach grade 12. And this can influence them in many ways from keeping away from all the social evils in our country. Thank you, Vicky.
Thanks, Amrit. That's Amrit in Cape Town. And just reminding us, of course, that beyond education, there are many other social ills that face our young people, and particularly focusing there on young children. Let me read a Facebook message from MCN Zulu who says, Siki, in 1976, youth built the future, which some of them did not inherit, but today's youth destroy the future and destroy themselves. Instead of uniting and addressing what is a common challenge to them, they would rather follow leaders who are power hungry, who want nothing else but to lead and self-enrichment. Our youth today can't separate what is politics and what is of national interest. There's no character or decent lifestyle. Worse, they also lack role models. Alternatively, they follow what is on television, which is dominated by Western characters, which I blame it on the SABC mostly. Siki, when you look back and turn to today's youth, there's no hope for good leaders because only the few remain, and those few fear for their lives because those who are corrupt know nothing but to kill and destroy. Power is everything to them. And X Factor Butelezi on Facebook says, it's all confusing looking at things where I am. I wish I could predict the future of this country. And for me, Dr. Richards, hearing a young person despairing like that makes me despair.
No, sure. Siki, let me see if I can motivate things positively with a story, and please indulge me.
Okay.
I was studying in Switzerland, and I had a white German professor, and I had to do Latin to qualify to complete my degree. As I went to this professor, I said, sir, you know, I'm from a disadvantaged background, and, you know, I didn't do this at school. He stopped me dead in my tracks. He says, listen, young man, the rules of the game here are as follows. If you don't like it, pack your bags and go back to your continent. I was upset. I went to my wife who was with me. I said, well, you know, now I'm convinced that all white people in this entire world are racist. They absolutely are racist. They don't understand what my predicament is and what my background is. And, you know, that professor forced me to do the subjects that I needed to do in order to graduate. And I am today forever thankful that I got my degree based on merit and not as a handout. You know what it does to you psychologically to live off handouts? And I think that is the risk that we are flirting with in our society. Our education system is flirting with handouts to our kids. You know, if they underperform, they must be told flat in their face, you underperform, right. Get out, fix it up, and come back.
Yeah.
But what do? We move the problem one grade higher, and then by the time you get to Professor Dion, I mean, he's tearing his hair out if he has any left. To say, where did this thing go wrong? Well, I can tell you where it went wrong, but let's fix it. That's my energy. Let's fix it.
And it's what they are also exposed to out there. If you are surrounded by people who have not shown any industriousness but have a flashy car, a flashy house, and that's what your role model, the person just down around the corner, is from you.
Sure.
Then what do we expect from them? Like you were saying, why are we blaming the broken bottles?
No, sure. So, Alfie that spoke to us, the electrician that became a manager, that became a director, my congratulations to you, Alfie, and we need more of you in our system. But the lesson from Alfie's input is to say the following: what do we want our youth or youthful generation to aspire to become? And that is, I suppose, a leadership question from the top. What is it that we're making our young people hungry for? What is their appetite that we are nurturing? Unfortunately, the appetite is exactly what you've said, Nsiki, the flashy cars and so on. And nobody asks, but where did it come from? You got to work for these things, These are not handouts, unless you're a gangster, of course. So I think, the leadership challenge, there's challenges at a number of levels, but certainly at the upper level of leadership in the country, we need to redefine the value that we place on the industrial sector of our economy so that young people can aspire and feel valued to work in that space. If you're not valued, you're not going to want to work in that space. We all think that to become a medical doctor is the ultimate solution. It's not.
And that there's something wrong with being a plumber. For example.
The medical doctor only keeps us healthy so that we can grow the economy, if you want to use that image. So I think there's an inversion of values. And we need to, if I had my way, I would put the leadership against, I was going to say a firing squad, but against the back of a wall.
Yeah, because you're going to get me to
Let me use a different image. I'll put them in my class. They can sign up for my course at my Center for Leadership.
I like that. That is all.
What we should take cognizance of is the fact that the lifeblood of every nation lies in its youth. So it's our duty to put our heads together and find out the solution. And the solution lies squarely on the heads of the leadership of the country. It's their job. They must go out of their way to see that. Remedy the situation before it becomes worse. The children of 1976 had a different perspective towards the whole thing. Their ultimate objective was to get their freedom. Of course, the freedom was never free, but the way they went about it was to see that they were liberated. And they fought the battle armless from within. Well, those that fought from without is a different story. But the criteria of the whole thing, let's put our heads together with government and see how the youth of today can put together into a positive action.
Sure. Ziki, maybe if you will allow me.
Yeah, very quick final word, because I want to talk about your books very quickly and where they
are
available.
Cracking me. All right,
I'm sitting with the copy here. But,
all right, here's something to chew on.
Yeah.
Switzerland.
Yes.
This country of absolutely no resources.
They have chocolate.
Oh, they got chocolate. But you know what? All the components of the chocolate come from outside of the country.
Yeah.
Now, that's another story. I love chocolate. But Switzerland is the country that trains per capita the most artisans in the entire world. You didn't know that, did you? I'm telling you. Because they've placed the value on that particular activity, the aspiration of every young Swiss boy and girl is to become an artisan, because they understand that to build a nation, you need a nation of builders called artisans, tradespeople. Chew on that for a while and we can talk again.
Then we'll talk again, absolutely. All right, so Bullets or Ballots still out, and you can find one in any exclusive books, I'm assuming, or CNA or whatever it is. Fantastic. Bullets or Ballots, the ultimate solution to crime and unemployment in South Africa by Dr. Ruben Richards. Interesting book. I read it last year sometime. And also Nostalgic Waves from Soweto, but you did mention that you've got a book coming out in June, like the end of the month, I think you said.
the middle of next month, is called Home at Last in Soweto. Has the dust settled? That's the title of the book.
All right. And where will it be available?
At all bookstores. And we hope to have the launch at the new Soweto Theatre. Because as refers the title, Home at Last in Soweto, has the dust settled. This is the way it all happened.
All right. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much to both of you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Saul Retchilo and Dr. Reuben Richards.